welcome to this episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Kingology with your host Mark. Today I've got a co-host, Anthony Rotolo. Sorry, Anthony, is it Rotolo? Is that
You've got it. Yeah, that's how you say it.
Right. And we interact quite heavily on the Horror Etc. Facebook group. Horror Etc. just for anyone who doesn't know, is a pretty damn good horror podcast, which unfortunately has dried up a little in the last few months, but it's a really wonderful horror podcast. I'm sure you'd agree with me, Anthony, there.
It's outstanding. It's very eclectic. It's the same reason why I like what you do. Yours is very eclectic. I mean, with yours, one week you're dealing with Gamera, and then it might be Star Trek animated or
Yes.
Kingology. So you're all over the place in a good way.
Yeah. We've evolved into doing fairly short podcasts, but basically I've found that a lot of podcasts go on really long, and you end up just listening to the little bits you like. And some of them that are so good you just listen to them all. Horror Etc. is one I would listen to all the way through, but some of them that I find a bit long, so I've kind of gone to a model where we just put out 15-20 minute, half an hour sort of casts, and if you don't want to listen to that one, you can see from the title exactly what it's about, so you don't have to listen to it, but hopefully there'll be a few in there that sort of people like that. That's my idea for our cast. No, we did start in the more traditional way of, doing a film of what we watched and so on and so forth. Yeah, it kind of works better for us now. And also, it's a much easier thing to edit and get out quickly, your
duration just seems to be just as long as it needs to be.
Yes. So, it's pretty cool. So we've interacted over quite some time now on Horror Etc. This is the first time we've talked, though you did recently leave some feedback for me on the X-Files, which I'll be putting into our next X-Files show. So I'm looking forward to including that, and you raised some interesting points that I hadn't thought about, so I'm looking forward to talking about that.
Good.
But I just want to talk about Horror Etc. a little, because I'm a big fan of that particular podcast and the group, in fact. So I just wanted to discuss that a little more. Now, you have spent quite a bit of time going through sort of TV horror, haven't you? You've been doing various posts about sort of TV movies and so on, which are very enjoyable. Are you finding it? I mean, it can be frustrating sometimes when you don't get much feedback after you've watched a film and you write fairly lengthy. I'm kind of used to that because
I joke about that sometimes, but yes. I mean, some of the stuff I've found is so obscure. I'm stumbling across things that I had never heard of. So, to put something out there. I mean, today, for example, I made an offhand remark about having finally caught up to Battle Royale, which I did in preparation for this show. I'd actually owned it and took a while to get to it, but I saw that. But the group went crazy. There were I think there were over 60 comments at last count. And then I spent, a pretty good deal of time composing this write-up about a 1972 movie with James Brolin that nobody heard of, and
except for me, actually, I had heard of it. I did like it, actually. That is a great little film. Was it Short Walk to Daylight? It can be frustrating because you can spend ages sort of looking into things and researching, and you get very little feedback, and as you say, an offhand comment here or there, and you get a massive thread. And it is ironic that I did post in the same forum earlier that day to sort of say we'll be doing this talking about this specific podcast, we'll be discussing these kinds of movies, which is exactly the sort of kind of movies that thread was about. But we got some feedback, but it was kind of funny that yours could have, so we'll use some from your thread, I think, in our discussion too. It's good, but it is Horror Etc. is a great little sort of Facebook group discussing horror, mostly movies, but literature comes into it too. And hopefully that podcast will sort of start up again at some point. I presume the two main hosts, Ted and Anthony, are sort of tied up on projects, and I do hope that they come back and do more, because it's a really terrific podcast. It really is enjoyable.
Yeah, I'm sure they're frustrated with their schedules. I don't believe they've thrown in the towel, even though people get nervous. But it is a testament to what they've done. They've amassed this huge body of content and it caters to about every interest in horror, with the exception of the stuff that Ted and Tony aren't that interested in, like, dare I say the phrase torture porn. They don't like to use the phrase, but they have their limits. But it's very eclectic, and you've got a reflection of all of that in the community.
Yeah,
and the group is very smart. We've got a collective intelligence there. I'm learning so much, and just through, I'm in the learning industry.
Yeah.
So part of my involvement with the Horror Etc. group has been firsthand experience with this concept of social learning. And we even joke about how onerous the homework has become, because we keep, recommending these films that we haven't seen, and it just mounts up. But what a great group.
Yeah, I think the horror fans as a group generally are kind of quite dedicated to searching and finding something good in each film they watch. Really, looking for the good is what a lot of horror movie fans are really about, and it's kind of wonderful when you either find one and sort of share it with people, or you find out about one that you get to watch and get the same enjoyment from. It's great, actually. Anyway, shall we get on with The Running Man?
Absolutely.
I think we will be getting back to the sort of the group's output, actually, once we get into the movie side of this. But we'll start with the book. Now, a little background read. I have read the book, I think, 3 times. I've read it once and listened to the audio version twice. Most recently for this. So I've read it a few times. Is it your first read, or have you read this one before?
The first time I'm reading it.
Oh, wow. Now, on rereading it, and as I say, I've read it twice, I've tackled it twice before. I always thought it was fairly slight. I always had a much higher preference for The Long Walk, which covers much the same sort of ground as sort of dystopian future, humans being put through some sort of trial for sort of public entertainment. However, this reading in particular really struck home to me. I thought it was a much better book than I remembered, actually, a much more meaty and challenging book. So it was kind of interesting. How are you finding it?
I was impressed with it. Of course, approaching the book, you come with notions of Arnold Schwarzenegger in bright spandex and all the television production values, as they focus a lot on Arnold battling these guys that are like straight out of comic books. But when you get into the book, you quickly realize that King is painting a very gritty, more realistic world of this future dystopia. And he's got this Ben Richards character that's just, kind of a down and outer with, he's got no money. He's got a wife and a kid that's very ill. So it's really just a desperation move that he would get into these games just to get money.
Yeah, it's a quite an intense book. King, purportedly, he said in On Writing, I think it was, that he wrote this in 72 hours, the whole book in 72 hours. I presume he must have been coked up or something to be able to get through such a vast amount of material. However, reading it, it does not feel like a rushed or inconsistent or barely thought through sort of book. It feels very consistent.
It is consistent. I mean, it's linear and episodic enough where I could see him blasting through it. It's not intricate, but it has deeper themes to think about.
It's got a very powerful narrative drive, I think. There is another book I'm familiar with, which in fact I learned about through reading King's Danse Macabre, which is Robert Louis Stevenson wrote Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in a similar white-hot pace. And that book is also very coherent and has very powerful narrative drive. It seems to be, when a writer sits down and just blazes through something like this, there's a real dry punch through the material.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's sort of written in a fever, and maybe there's more of a focus because, he's just got that white hot focus going on as he writes it.
Now, this was the last Bachman book before Bachman got revealed as Stephen King. King's written subsequent Bachman books, but everyone knew it was Stephen King at this point. So it's kind of got that sort of angle. Running Man to me feels like a very angry work as well. King sounds like he's got really he's thought about some issues and really wants to say things about them. And I find this quite an amazing book in that it's the dystopia it presents is probably closer to our modern world than most other dystopias.
He's tapping into class resentments, I think, is the main thing.
Yeah, and there's this feeling that being deliberately poisoning the underclass to sort of keep them down, which I guess comes from like the tobacco company, thinking about what the tobacco companies do. At least that's one element of it. But also it's kind of coming to pass that what he talks about here is looks like the potential future of capitalism, corporations running things, entertaining people to keep them distracted, putting ethics and morals completely going out the window, when profits are concerned and things like that. It's kind of interesting how those concerns are still with us, and I guess they'll always be with us to some degree. It does feel like a combination to me of like Most Dangerous Game. I think is probably the biggest influence on this book, and things like 1984, Brave New World, those kinds of things. I really like. I can't believe how much I like it compared to the last time I read it, which was quite a few years ago. It just feels like a much richer work. I remember, I think the first time I read it, I was a teenager, and I did not like it. The fact that, there's this guy, his wife is a prostitute, and he's, going through all of this. I don't think it appeals to the teenager in me as much as, say, The Long Walk did. The Long Walk resonates much more with the sort of teenage mindset, I think, than this. This is more like a man's perspective on things.
Well, that's kind of the amazing thing about revisiting these works, because you come back to it and you're somewhat of a different person.
Yes,
you see it through different eyes. But I see the work also as he's tapping into this notion of going back to like bread and circus or the gladiator games, where you just keep the masses very complacent. And I notice similarity in this. The centrality of television is it's not the most original concept, but you see it come up in all of these, not all of them, but many of these dystopian films. I'm thinking about Fahrenheit 451, where books are gone, but there's a television everywhere. Or I have been revisiting Rollerball, the 1975 version. And, it's never pointed out, but it's just every room James Caan walks into, it seems, there's an array of televisions. And yes. And central to that society is this, bloodlust and this focus on the games.
What I will say is I found it really interesting that though this was about a sort of a games for TV, the TV aspect of it isn't really focused on in the book. And one of the interesting things the movie did, even though they're quite different entities, they are quite, they're nominally got a similar story, but they're quite different things, is the movie really kind of shows the razzmatazz and the showbiz of the whole thing, whereas the book doesn't really focus on that. It's just this arduous marathon challenge.
The book
that guy has to go through.
Exactly, and in the book you've just got these unseen hunters. They're always nipping at his heels.
Yeah,
he's always looking over his shoulder. He wonders if they're triangulating on him or bracketing him, I think is the phrase he uses. But he doesn't really have any direct confrontation like in the movie. until we get toward the end.
The end. And then he's kind of calling the shots at that point as well. It's not like they found him, you know. I mean, he has a close shave at a few points, but it's not against that one person, is it? It's against, you know, hunters or coppers or whatever it is.
Yeah. So it's a fugitive story, really. It's like you took a dystopian thing like we were talking about, like Rollerball, and you married it to a fugitive tale.
Yeah, in fact, this has got quite a lot of comparisons to Rollerball. I'm glad you mentioned Rollerball. In this, the hero in the book is kind of becoming politically aware as part of this journey. He wasn't really at the beginning. It was just to sort of get some money to his family, but he meets people in the underclass who take time to educate themselves. You know, they have to go through a lot of aggravation to try and educate themselves, but they've taken that time, so it's kind of learning. And I think it's been a long time since I've watched Rollerball, so I might not be exact on point on this, but if I remember rightly, a lot of that film involves Jonathan E. sort of becoming aware of how he's being used. So it's kind of got similarities.
I wanted to mention also Death Race 2000, another one in that milieu where you just got, again, essentially gladiator games and a bloodthirsty audience.
I mean, that was kind of a rip-off of Rollerball, if I remember the timeline, right? Corman was aware of Rollerball and thought it'd cash in. And it's a great little film in its own right as well. And of course, there was the remakes of Death Race, which was, doing the same kind of thing, I guess.
I have not seen the remakes of either of those. Are they worth looking at?
They're worth looking at. I think the first two are pretty good, actually. The first one's got Jason Statham, and it's kind of a gritty. It's a Jason Statham film, but it's kind of gritty and sort of fun. It's fairly lightweight, but again, it does involve a political consciousness coming sort of awake. The second one's kind of a prequel. I can't remember his name. It's I think Luke Goss.
Okay,
is Frankenstein in the prequel of one, which is much the same story, but they're quite good action films. They're quite decent, you know. We'll get onto the film in a bit. How do you think? Have you read many of the other Bachman stories? Have you read A Long Walk, for example?
I haven't. I've read none of the Bachmans except for Desperation and Regulators.
Okay,
I've got the collection sitting on my shelf. I've got the one with Rage in it. So I'm very happy to own it.
Oh, wow.
But I have not gone through them. I've read tons of King, but I just never read the Bachman stuff.
A lot of people do regard Long Walk as possibly King's best book. I mean, it's really highly thought of, The Long Walk, and it's definitely worth reading. But I think when you get to it, I think you'll find it more of it would appeal more to teenagers. Whereas I think The Running Man is, like I say, would appeal more to sort of adults.
Right.
And I think because most of us come to King as teenagers, we much prefer The Long Walk. Having said that, I still prefer The Long Walk out of these two, but The Running Man's really come up for me this current read. Really, I thought of it as a much lesser book.
Have you covered The Long Walk yet?
Yes, I have. Yes. It was, about 6 months ago. It was published before this. So the Kingology runs chronologically. So The Long Walk, was, I think, his second Bachman book. So, yes, I've covered it. So go back and listen to it and you can get a feel. But I think there's probably spoilers in it. But it's an amazingly written book in that it's basically people walking and talking, but it keeps your entire interest for the entire book. And there's not that much in the way of flashbacks, the literary version of flashbacks. So it's quite amazing, the sort of thing. King's got an amazing way of getting into, that's, I think, why a lot of people like King. He really gets into the head of the characters. Now, in fact, I find The Running Man, it's less so in The Running Man than in some of his other works, such as, I don't know, The Shining and so on.
Yeah, no, he goes, sometimes to a fault. I'm going through it right now on audio, and the divergent tangents he goes on through just going into someone's mind in the middle of the scene, and suddenly all the flashback or the interior stuff takes over. But we kind of forgive that.
Yeah, well, I like him because of that, really. The fact is he can really, really put you into someone else's mindset and make you understand them.
Yes.
I don't think he does it in The Running Man. The Running Man's a much more external book. There's much less internal dialogue going on. It's done by, dialogue rather than internal thought processes. What we're concerned with in terms of thought processes Ben Richards surviving and trying to get to the next thing. One other thing about the Running Man, which is a standout for King, is it's got quite a coherent ending. The ending actually is satisfying and makes sense. It doesn't feel like a drop-off, which often happens with sort of King works. People often say, the ending of The Stand is a bit weak, and this, that and the other. But I think The Running Man is quite a different book from the typical King because A, it doesn't really get into the internal dialogue so much, and B, it's the ending works.
Yeah, a lot of King books, it's all about the journey, and then the he's got to come up with an ending. Here, he really achieves that feeling of inevitability that writers want, where everything culminates into something very logical and impactful. And here, literally, it's impactful.
Yes. It feels like almost like an adventure. It's not an adventure story. It's a little darker than that. In structure and content, it feels a little different from the usual King fare. It's definitely come up in my estimation. Now, usually at this point, I sort of try and. I'm not going to rank them, but I try and give it a score of some sort. What would you give this book out of 10?
I would give it a 7 or an 8 for what it is. I think it's very solid.
Yeah, I think I'd say 8 seems fair. Between 7 and 8, definitely. Whereas before this reread, I would have said it's a 6. So it's really come up in my estimation, as I say. There's things in it that I think are really, really interesting. It was a quite entertaining read as well. Okay, there's one other point I wanted to make. Is set in 2025. It's always amusing when dystopian novels start approaching their date, like when 1984 was here. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah, or Escape from New York and the foggy future of 1997.
Yeah, or the Terminator, all of the various things. And we're approaching 2025 rapidly. And in fact, the movie's 2017, so we're approaching that even faster.
Yeah.
That's kind of fun. Okay, shall we get on to the movies?
Sure.
Now, we'll talk about The Running Man, but I wouldn't mind discussing, and I think we're both kind of interested in the whole sort of movie genre of humans hunting other humans, or humans being hunted for sort of fun, profit, sport, whatever, entertainment. Now, the 1987's Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger, it really couldn't be much further from King's book than it is, really. It's glossy, it's sort of action-packed, and like you already said, it's kind of, he's fighting these sort of gladiator types in this sort of fixed arena rather than running around in, the entire world kind of thing, which was possible in the book. Have you seen this film before?
I've seen it many, many times. I just rewatched it again. It's one I own. I saw it in the theaters when I was a teenager.
I think I did too. I'm not entirely sure, but I think I did too. I certainly remember seeing Predator in the theatre, which was the same year.
Yeah.
So I may well have seen this in the theatre too. So you're a fan of the movie, I take it?
Yeah, for what it is, I think it works great. I think between Schwarzenegger and Richard Dawson, you've got a great cast. And I like the sort of unexpected casting of Maria Conchita Alonso. That's the name that's fun to say, by the way.
I'm not going to attempt that.
She's sort of like plays against the, you'd expect some, conventional Hollywood beauty, but she's this, feisty brings a feisty, ethnicity, to kind of an energy.
I also always felt that she was like the inspiration for the lady that was in Total Recall. They kind of remind me of each other, and I can kind of see they saw some sort of chemistry between Arnie and the lady in this, and they kind of, in Total Recall, they were trying to replicate it because it's got a similar vibe. She's not the best actress, but she works well in this film.
She definitely
fits the part. Yeah, she was pretty good. I also, I don't know Richard Dawson from anything other than this. I understand, he was a game show host. I don't know him from anything.
You've never seen Family Feud?
No. Only in when they show highlight shows of like amusing contestants in things.
I mean, Richard Dawson was just a sort of a omnipresent game show personality. He was just on for years and years and years, and famous for kissing every woman on the panel. And so when he did this film, it almost felt like
it was meta, wasn't it?
It was meta. It was self-parody, but it's such a teethy role. I mean, you have Dawson. He's dropping the F-bomb all the time, and it's so untelevision that it's almost shocking to see him in this.
And he was an arsehole. A guy mopping the floor bumps into him. He acts really, it's fine, no problem. Get him out. If he's here tomorrow, you'll be mopping the floor. As he walks away. He was terrific in this.
Yeah, totally really duplicitous.
Killian was a really great character. I really enjoyed him. And some of his phrases have become sort of memes, haven't they? Who loves you and who do you love? You see that and hear that in various things. It was between them that I thought they were really terrific. And then following up that, we had Jesse Ventura's Captain Freedom and Yaphet Kotto and stuff like that. It was a good fun film. This is a really good fun film.
Yeah, it's really good. And brings Ventura and Schwarzenegger back again together. They had been in Predator.
Yeah,
and Predator predates this, right? A little bit, or
I couldn't remember. I mean, they came out in the same year, but I just got the feeling. I don't know if it's because Predator's just more memorable. It's just more striking. Again, it's a similar theme. Humans being hunted. It's kind of a similar theme, but and I think Ventura's a bit more. He's just a more interesting character in Predator, the things he comes out with Predator. But it was, I don't know which one came first, to be honest. I don't know. A similar timing, whatever it is. I mean, they're both 87. Now, I've always been kind of interested in this sort of subgenre. And I remember seeing Most Dangerous Game when I was like a boy. I'm really liking it, thinking it was really good. And it was kind of a forerunner of King Kong, with Fatty Ray and jungles and running through the jungle and stuff like that. So since then I've always kind of been interested in it. So and of course Running Man is firmly in that kind of arena. And you sort of raised the thread today about Battle Royale, which is again in this kind of arena. Lots of films came out of the woodwork in your thread about Battle Royale.
Yeah, they really did. That again, the testament to that group's collective brains. Just so many things came out. But Most Dangerous Game. I just want to make note of that. What a great. It's a good film. It was made the year before King Kong, so when you watch the film, you're going to notice. Sets that are going to give you a sense of deja vu. They come across the big log that in King Kong becomes the famous log scene where they're trying to get across the chasm. And you've got Fay Ray, and the actor's name is eluding me who played Denham.
It was Jack Driscoll. I can't remember now. Let me look it up while you're talking. Yeah.
But the story is very powerful. I just listened to, by the way, another podcast tip is the Classic Tales podcast. There's a guy named BJ Harrison who does a lot of readings of mostly public domain classic works, and he keeps them you'll see a lot of them remain on iTunes for a while, and then they go off and are for sale on his site. But he's a superb narrator, and while you can, you should grab his Island of Dr. Moreau reading, because that's one of the good ones that are still out for free. But anyway, I went through his The Most Dangerous Game a second time recently. Very, very exciting story. It's written in the 1920s, but it reads so modern in a way, and
yeah, I've read the story a few times. It's a fairly short story as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think it's 20 pages tops, or so.
It'll take you about an hour to get through it.
It ends very abruptly as well. I do remember that. It's a great story, and the film is terrific. Zaroff in it is fairly pantomime, but it really is quite primal and works. Where he's like, stroking his scar on his forehead and talking about reveling after the hunt while he's looking at Fay Ray. It just works. It just really works.
It's very good.
By the way, the actor was Joel McRae.
Yes.
And what I'm thinking of when I said Jack Driscoll is the other lead, the male lead in King Kong.
Yeah, that's her love interest. But yeah, it makes some changes from the original story, but the film is very entertaining.
Yeah, I've never found a decent copy of it on DVD. They're always kind of ropey, which is a shame. It does deserve a bit of a clean up, but there you go. It's quite impactful. It's quite an impactful story, but it does spawn a lot of other films and actually TV episodes. And in fact, while we were discussing this in the last week, you raised the fact there was an Incredible Hulk episode that sort of covered this story. So I actually dug that out and watched it, and it was terrific. It was a terrific episode. Bradford Dillman was the sort of mad hunter.
Oh, yeah, Brad Dillman. He's in everything in the 70s. I love him.
He's good, though. He's really good. And it was a really exciting episode. I also did find out there was a Charlie's Angels episode called Angel Hunt.
Oh, wow.
But I couldn't get a copy. I really wanted to watch it. Yeah. But I can definitely recommend the episode in Incredible Hulk. It's called The Snare. If you can get a hold of that.
Yeah, what was that? It was in season 3, I think, or
season 3. It's the Charlie's Angels one was season 4, so I'm just trying. Yeah, I think it was season 3 of the Hulk.
And it was written by Richard Matheson's son, Richard Christian Matheson.
I did not realise that. Wow. It did feel very Matheson, actually. It had that
which reminds me. I'm sorry, I'm tripping on you, but Richard Matheson. Richard Matheson is pretty hardcore when you read his books. He wrote a book, just popped into my head now, called Hunted Past Reason, and it is directly in this subgenre that we're talking about. But it's pretty brutal, and there's some scenes in there. If you're if you're a heterosexual male, that you're going to grimace at. So,
I see.
I had a real. It was one of the only times I had to avert my eyes from a printed page. It was. So.
Oh man, I mean, I am a big fan of Matheson. I really like I Am Legend and Shrinking Man. Yeah. So I might try and catch that. Actually, that's not one I've heard of. But if you start thinking about it on TV, there's I mean, Star Trek. The most famous one's probably Arena, where Kirk fights the Gorn. But there's Star Trek reused this idea of sort of beings tormenting other beings, often to the death or, under threat of dying. Star Trek reused this quite a lot. And I did start thinking about what films I have actually dug out films because I like this subgenre, but it was amazing that there's some I've never even heard of mentioned in the group today, on the Horror Etc. group. In your Battle Royale thread, some I've not heard of, so I'm going to have to dig out some more, and I thought I'd covered most of them, so it's kind of interesting. Particularly, ones I particularly like are, I'm trying to think, what Battle Royale is it? You've seen the first one now, have you?
So I've been initiated just last night. I have a copy of it that I've been sitting on for months, and finally got to it. Really excellent.
Sorry, go on.
No, that's okay. I can see the direct parallel to Hunger Games. It's obvious. So I was joking in my thread that they ripped off the Hunger Games, but it was the other way around.
Yes, obviously. That was funny that someone actually picked you up and said, "No, hold on, that was first." It was kind of, I don't know if they were pulling your chain or what, but it was kind of funny. I think Hunger Games is kind of a lightweight version of Battle Royale, but I kind of like Hunger Games in and of itself. I certainly like the first book, and I quite like the first film. Not so much of a fan of the others, though I've read all the books, but I didn't bother seeing the third Hunger Games film because I really wasn't that much a fan of the second. But I thought this first one really worked well, actually.
Yeah, I just got a cheap copy of the Blu-ray, which I've seen the Hunger Games before, but I plan to revisit it.
I quite enjoyed it. It does get a lot of bad press though, so I think it's a matter of taste, But there's lots of film in this subgenre. Hard Target's quite a good one, which was John Woo's first American movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme. That was kind of fun. If you go back, there's horror ones that are like this. There's one called The Beast Must Die, which was
that's an Amicus film.
That's right. It's made in 1974, and it has a tie with Predator. Predator also shares this kind of trope. The hunter in The Beast Must Die was King Willie in Predator 2.
Oh, is that right?
So there's a bit of a tie there. Yeah. And there was kind of a fun early 80s film called Turkey Shoot, which I mentioned in the group and got a bit of love.
Yeah, I think I've seen it a long time ago, but so long ago I could just watch it anew.
It's almost like Running Man, but gone to a crazy extent. Like one of the hunters has got like a wolf man pet he uses for hunting and things like that. It's some nice stuff. It even occurred to me there's a couple of James Bonds that use this theme. Man with a Golden Gun, that's kind of a duel. And in Octopussy, James Bond's hunted through a jungle. So
yes,
this kind of theme permeates a lot
it's
of
everywhere.
material.
I'm thinking of. I'm also going back to Logan's Run, just in parallel. Again, another dystopian society where they keep the masses distracted with the pleasure shops and all these other things. But if you break out of that world, as Logan, finds, you're going to be one of the hunted by the Sandmen in this case.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, and I guess also George Lucas touched on it as well with THX 1138.
Yes.
There's a touch of that. In terms of films that are most similar to the book, Running Man book, now, the Running Man book, there's lots of scenarios where people are hunted, often in an arena, often in the wild, but some of them are urban, and the book Running Man is an urban hunt through an open environment, isn't it, pretty much? And series, there's a couple of films that I think are most like that, which is Series 7, The Contenders, is kind of set in sort of the urban world. And there's another one called The Tournament, which isn't a very good film, but it is, I think it's set in Scotland. And they're being hunted in a town in Scotland, which is kind of unusual. So there are lots of sort of films of this genre, and a lot of them are fun. Should we have a look at the group? There was various postings.
Yeah,
on
let's do that. Before we do that, I just we should mention First Blood because it's just to me it's probably one of my top 20 films of all time. But there's the hunted becoming the hunter, but a notable example.
Yeah, it's. First Blood is a really terrific film. It really is. I remember seeing it at the cinema and being really blown away because it was so different from anything Stallone had done before. It really changed the tack of his career. He did sort of become an action star. Rocky was one thing, but when he sort of the Rambo thing really sort of elevated him into the action sort of genre.
Yes, it did,
and sort of helped to perpetuate the 80s action thing. Him and Schwarzenegger, and then later on Willis, and so on, really made that a big thing in the 80s. I'm trying to think. One of the other ones mentioned was Surviving the Game. Is that one you have heard of?
I have not. I have not heard that one.
That's one of these ones set in the wilds. Gary Busey's in it. I think F. Murray Abraham. Ice-T is the guy being hunted. It's a fun one. It's a kind of forgettable, but it's fun. One I do quite like it, and it's one of these ones sort of set in an island arena kind of thing, is one called The Condemned, which is Vinnie Jones is the bad guy in it, and I'm trying to remember, I think it's Steve Austin as the hero, as it were.
Oh, so this is a newer film.
Yeah. So it's I think it's 2010. It's kind of an action film. It's kind of fun. So I mean, all of these I kind of see as the children of Most Dangerous Game.
Yes. And
it's funny because as some of our other podcasts, we've been watching Universal movies, and one of the ones we watched was a film called The Old Dark House, which was my first watch.
Oh, yeah.
And I was impressed how much that has obviously inspired a whole subgenre of films involving odd families in odd houses. And then it got me thinking about how Most Dangerous Game, that one film, has become a massive inspiration for this like slightly odd subgenre of movies that isn't really recognised as a subgenre, a genre certainly, but maybe a subgenre. But it's kind of proved to be quite influential.
Oh yeah, and these things are progenitors of the whole subgenre. And The Old Dark House is a great film. It's a James Whale picture before he got into the Frankenstein ones.
Indeed, and I'd never seen it before, and it really blew me away how good it was and how obviously it informed so many, right through Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the Addams Family, so many different things. And it got me thinking how The Most Dangerous Game is. And it just got me thinking of how much stuff is seeded in the 30s movies that sort of still inform us today. It's kind of interesting that early period of talkies has been fairly influential in terms of sort of the zeitgeist of media. It's kind of cool, really.
It really is. Well, the archetypes get set up, and you can't entirely reinvent them. So they all go back to that period.
Yeah, it's amazing. If you've seen The Running Man, or you've seen The Hunger Games, or you've seen Battle Royale, you really should try and find The Most Dangerous Game, I think, and just see the granddaddy of all of those things. One point I wanted to get back to, Battle Royale. You might want to try and catch Battle Royale 2. It's not as well regarded as Battle Royale, and some people just don't like it, but in fact it's got a lot of similarities to the book The Running Man, in that it becomes kind of about political awareness growing and reacting against that. In fact, it's very similar to the second Hunger Games film, in fact.
Yeah, I was hearing good things about that today. I was talking with Chris Downs in the group, and he said he bought the set, and he recommends that second film.
I do too. It's definitely worth a look, I'd say. I'm still trying to find the sort of comments in the group on the thread. I'm just going to put it.
Yeah, I'm looking at the thread right now. I'm seeing titles like Avenging Force. That
I don't know. I don't know that one.
There's The Condemned. You mentioned The Condemned.
I just mentioned that. Yes.
Hard Target was another one. And Deadly Prey.
Deadly Prey, I think I've seen, but I can't remember for sure. I might have it confused with something else. The one I'm thinking of is effectively almost like a rerun of the Star Trek episode Arena with aliens on another planet, but I think I might be thinking of something else. That might be another film with a similar title. I'm not entirely sure. There's a mention here of Lord of the Flies, which I don't really. No, actually, thinking about it, the last act of Lord of the Flies is boys hunting another boy. So yeah,
it is. Civilization. They form this society. The island is like a stand-in for, it becomes their world, and you see a breakdown of civilization happen right there. And these boys, break out into their factions, and then they prey upon the weak, and it's pretty amazing.
Yes. I mean, I've read the book and I've seen the 60s film. I haven't seen the 90s version, but I've seen the 60s one.
Yeah, same
In fact,
here.
I think I saw it at school. We were shown it at school.
I think that's how I got through it too, in school, the book and the movie.
And I also see there's a mention of a film I haven't seen in many years, which is kind of fun, called Jim Carter, which is a fun sort of karate movie. Well, I remember a guy takes out a whole horde of zombie-like creatures using a pommel horse. So it's one of those the film where kind of things. It's kind of fun. It's definitely worth seeing.
Yeah, and they're talking about the Lord of the Flies on this thread.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit tenuous, but thinking about it, the last act definitely has this humans hunting humans kind of vibe. Well, it is exactly that. Now, I would definitely recommend to you try The Long Walk at some point soon, just to get a comparison. I'll be really interested in what you think of it compared to The Running Man. Like I say, when I first read both these books, I was a teenager, and I really took to The Long Walk. It just resonated much more with me. And Rage too, actually. Rage, I felt was quite an important book when I read it. And I still really like Rage, but I think The Long Walk does stand out. But The Running Man, as I've said already, it really has come up in my estimation because I just think it works really well. I'm not sure I've got much more to say about these. It's a great subgenre. It's much more a movie subgenre than a literature subgenre. In fact, in literature, you don't find many. I mean, it really is. I think The Running Man, The Long Walk, Hunger Games, Battle Royale, and The Most Dangerous Game. So it's not a big thing in literature, but it suits movies more, I guess. That's the thing.
It probably does. I imagine there's more than we realize in
sure.
literature, just because it's another world unto itself. But it's definitely a movie thing. I'm thinking also of Apocalypto, the Mel Gibson film, where it's just another chase through the jungle.
I've not seen that. Is it one long chase?
It really, you think it's going to be about what is it, the Mayans or the Aztecs? I think it's the Mayans.
Yeah.
It's been a while. But, Gibson really just wanted to make a chase film. So underneath all these trappings, it's about a guy being, pursued through the jungle. And it's a terrific film. You should get onto that as soon as possible.
I have to say, I am kind of a fan of Mel Gibson's direction, actually. A lot of people didn't like it, but I actually thought, I'm not a religious person, but when I saw Passion of the Christ, I really appreciated the artistry that went into the direction of it. And I thought, man, he's really got something going on here. I actually just wanted to mention, talking about direction, Running Man, directed by Paul Michael Glaser, who was Starsky in Starsky and Hutch.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. I wanted to mention that when they fired the original director for The Running Man, and Arnold complained that with that director leaving, they also did not get into the deeper themes that they could have. It became all about the television show instead. So that's kind of an interesting shift. It might have been a little more, tapping into the themes of the book.
Yeah, possibly. It's hard to say. I mean, I think they did it is completely different from the book. I think as a film, it sort of stands alone and it's coherent. The world they create is quite coherent, but I understand it's kind of superficial, perhaps. I actually quite like Glaser's direction in other things. I felt this one wasn't quite, I think I saw some of his direction of, say, Miami Vice episodes and things like that. And they're quite good. Certainly in TV things he directed, I've kind of liked them. So who knows? The thing is, who knows? The other guy was fired pretty quickly after the production started, I believe, so I don't know.
Yeah, it was Andrew Davis who directed The Fugitive, and
right.
He also did Code of Silence, the Chuck Norris film, Under Siege.
There's a few Chuck Norris films that would fit into this category, actually, I think. I'm trying to think. Silent Rage and... I'm not sure. The Fugitive kind of fits into this a bit as well, doesn't it?
That would make him a logical choice to direct this thing.
Thinking about it, there's quite a lot of TV shows where... I mean, the entire Incredible Hulk TV show is someone being pursued, isn't it? And the original Fugitive... Mm-hmm. Possibly Kung Fu, maybe not Kung Fu because he was just wandering, wasn't he? He wasn't. Oh no, he was wanted, wasn't he? So yeah, it's just the more you look, the more you see this kind of theme in it in lots of different things. It does seem to be almost like a go-to on TV shows once they hit a certain season as well.
Yeah, I think just when you get it down to its elements, just the if you isolate the idea of being pursued, if someone's after you, that's really everywhere, but it's rarer for it to be turned into the full story. So these are great examples of that.
Yeah, I guess if you keep extending it, you start getting into assorted spaghetti westerns and it just goes on, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
Once Upon a Time in the West, for example, that's a major theme in it for one of the characters. Okay, I think we'll wind it up there. Thank you very much for coming on. Is there anything you'd like to sort of pass on to the listeners, either for the Horror Etc. group, or is there any other podcasts you'd like to mention?
Oh gosh, well, I'd like to say Horror Etc. has, as we touched on before, it's such a vibrant community that I appreciate those folks daily. It's nice to have this group of virtual friends. They're actually real people. That's the amazing thing. They don't just live inside my phone or my laptop. But that's a great group. Other podcasts, I have... I think kind of my trifecta has been Horror Etc., Terror Transmission, and maybe a third one with that type of depth is The Projection Booth. 3 great shows. Of the 3, I would say that Terror Transmission is despite a lot of off-topic stuff, that you have to deal with there. There's a lot of deep, near scholarly research that goes into every episode. And that's just a terrific source of information if you want to get a serious profile on the history and lore of all these very key genre films. So... recommendation.
Oh, that's cool. That sounds good. Yes, I'll try and give that a listen too. Yeah, awesome. I'll also repeat again, Horror Etc. as a group is a great group. It's a great podcast too. I did try to elicit some feedback, and I got a little bit of feedback for this podcast. I'd just like to read a few of the things, if you don't mind. First feedback was from Master White, who said, "I'm Anthony Rotolo's biggest fan. I love him, and not in a homo way. Please send him my regards." So there's a hello there. And someone else says about you, he's like an evangelist for horror.
Wow,
great. Barrett Hammond said, "The Running Man is on my shortlist for a retelling. I'm nostalgic about the 80s film, but it doesn't do justice to the story. The Bankman book is fantastic and a lot more frightening. Imagine being villainized and hunted by everyone. A retelling needs the average man approach. As far as the movie goes, the one thing they got right was casting Richard Dawson." Yeah, interesting remake. I would like to see the actual original story made into something. And an Everyman would be pretty good. I'm trying to think who I'd probably like someone like Sam Rockwell, someone like that who's got charisma, but not like an A-lister.
Yeah, there's a bunch of these King stories that it would be nice to see them redone in a very deliberate way.
And a few are being redone. I mean, there's talk of The Stand and It at the minute, isn't there? So, we'll wait and see. no, not everyone's a fan of the TV shows The Stand. I think a lot of people kind of like it, despite some sort of certain cheesy special effects and aspects of it, because Tim Curry was so good as Pennywise. But yeah, this particular story I think could be done pretty well, and it kind of feels ripe. Actually, there's sort of this whole idea of corporations deliberately poisoning people would hit a lot of resonances right now. I'll pick out a few other comments. Dan Stout said, I always thought the cast of Richard Dawson was pretty brilliant. Yeah, I'm with you there, Dan. And I wonder how much he viewed it as a satire of his tenure on Family Feud. Minus the murders, of course.
Great remarks.
Sort of tangentially related is Stanley Tucci's brilliant turn as the Master Crown manipulator Caesar in another human hunting game show, The Hunger Games. Yeah, Stanley Tucci was great in Hunger Games. And yeah, he was a reflection of Killian, actually. Yeah, a good point. Not something that had occurred to me. Let me see the rest of it. There's people talking about Bob Saget. Oh, I don't really know who that is. I know he's a comedian, but there's some suggestion that Bob Saget could work as Killian in a recasting, I think.
Yeah, Bob Saget was on Full House, which I never watched. He's a comedian, and he did America's Funniest Home Videos. And then there's a guy on YouTube that he's the Tourette's guy that uses Bob Saget as a curse word whenever he goes into a Tourette's fit. But nice. That's Bob Saget.
Yeah, okay then. I think we'll wind it up there. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to have you. I'll keep in touch to let you know what other Kings I'll be doing in the future. So if ever you want to come on again, you'd be very welcome to come on.
Mark, thanks.
To discuss anything.
Yeah, if they don't throw any rotten vegetables our way for having me on, I'd love to do it again. But thanks for the opportunity.
You're welcome. This has been kind of a half Running Man, half horror, etc. cast actually, but which is fine. Hopefully it's kind of keeping the beacon burning in the Horace etc. podcast world until the real Horror etc. podcast comes back.
We'll keep the home fires burning.
So thanks so much, and bye from me.
Thanks, Mark.